She's quirky, she's beautiful in an unconventional way, and she dances in the rain. She listens to indie music, has a whimsical fashion sense, and her only apparent goal in life is to pull a gloomy, brooding man out of his emotional funk and teach him to embrace life. This is the Manic Pixie dream girl, a character trope that has graced our screens for decades, often presented as the ideal romantic interest. But look a little closer, and a more troubling picture emerges. She isn't a person. She's a plot device. Today, we're diving deep into the world of the Manic Pixie dream girl, deconstructing this controversial trope, exploring its origins, and understanding why so many critics and writers view it as a sign of lazy, one-dimensional storytelling. The term itself was coined in 2007 by film critic Nathan Robin after watching the film Elizabethtown. He used it to describe Kirsten Dunst's character, Claire, a bubbly flight attendant who single-handedly pulls Orlando Bloom's depressed protagonist back from the brink. Rabin defined her as a character who exists solely in the fevered imaginations of sensitive writer-directors to teach broodingly soulful young men to embrace life and its infinite mysteries and adventures. She has no inner life of her own, no ambitions, no problems that don't conveniently serve the male lead's journey of self-discovery. Once you know what to look for, you start seeing this character everywhere. Think of Natalie Portman's character, Sam, in Garden State. She's a compulsive liar with a strange helmet and a house full of rescued pets. And her entire existence seems to revolve around helping Zach Braff's character feel something, anything, again. Or consider Zooey Deschanel's Summer in 500 Days of Summer, a film that both uses and subverts the trope. From the male protagonist's perspective, Summer is the perfect MPDG, enigmatic force of nature who loves the Smiths and believes in fate, all to awaken his romantic sensibilities. The problem isn't that quirky or optimistic female characters are inherently bad. The issue arises when their quirkiness is their only defining trait, and their entire narrative purpose is to serve as a catalyst for a man's emotional growth. These characters are rarely afforded the same complexity or interiority as their male counterparts. We never see their struggles, their dreams, or their lives when the male protagonist isn't around. They are essentially a fantasy, an idealized vision of a woman who will fix a man's problems without having any of her own. This trope often presents a woman's emotional labor as a charming, effortless, and desirable part of a romantic relationship. The MPDG is never tired, never burdened, and never asks for anything in return for the immense psychological support she provides. She cheerfully takes on the project of saving a man, making it seem like a whimsical adventure rather than the draining work it often is in reality. This creates an unrealistic and unhealthy expectation of what a partner's role should be. The origins of this character type can be traced back long before the term was coined. You can see echoes of it in classic Hollywood films where spirited, unconventional women often served to liven up the lives of more serious, grounded men. Characters like Katharine Hepburn's Susan Vance in Bringing Up Baby from 1938 have some of the core ingredients. She's chaotic, spontaneous, and turns the protagonist's life upside down, ultimately leading him to a happier, less rigid existence. However, the modern iteration of the trope became particularly prominent in the indie film scene of the early 2000s. This was a time when stories about sensitive, disaffected young men were in vogue, and the MPDG was the perfect character to facilitate their coming-of-age stories. These films often reflected a very specific male fantasy, the idea that a woman, a magical and otherworldly creature, would enter their mundane lives and make them feel special, understood, and alive. Critics argue that the Manic Pixie dream girl is a symptom of lazy writing. It's an easy shortcut for writers who want to give their male protagonist a transformative romantic experience without the difficult work of creating a fully fledged, three-dimensional female character. Instead of writing a woman with her own agency, desires, and a story arc that is independent of the male leads, the writer creates a fantasy figure. This character is essentially a collection of endearing eccentricities designed to be appealing to the protagonist and, by extension, the audience. This robs the story of a potentially rich and complex dynamic between two equals. The relationship isn't a partnership. It's a therapy session disguised as a romance. where one person does all the giving and the other does all the taking. Furthermore, the trope reinforces a subtle but pervasive form of sexism. It suggests that women's primary value lies in their ability to nurture and heal men. Their own stories, their own self-actualization, are deemed secondary or completely irrelevant. The MPDG is never the protagonist of her own story. She is a supporting character in someone else's, her vibrant personality reduced to a tool for his character development. This is a profound disservice not only to female characters, but to female viewers. Looking for representation that reflects their own complex lives? The very creator of the term, Nathan Rabin, later expressed deep regret for coining it. He saw how it was sometimes misapplied to any quirky female character, effectively boxing in actresses and writers. He argued that the label had become a crutch, sometimes used to dismiss complex characters who didn't fit the narrow definition. However, he also stood by its original intent, to call out a specific hollow archetype that serves a male fantasy. The conversation that the term started is more important than the label itself. It forced creators and audiences to think more critically about how female characters are written and whose stories are being told. Thankfully, in recent years, there has been a noticeable shift away from this trope. Writers and filmmakers are becoming more conscious of the need to create female characters who are just as flawed, complex, and independent as their male counterparts. We see films and shows that actively deconstruct the MPDG. Ruby Sparks, for example, literally tells the story of a writer who creates his ideal woman, only to realize the horror of controlling a person who has no agency of her own. It's a brilliant takedown of the entire concept. 500 Days of Summer also cleverly plays with the audience's expectations. By the end of the film, we are forced to recognize that our perception of summer was filtered entirely through the protagonist's selfish, idealized lens. A title card even reminds us, this is a story of boy meets girl, but you should know up front, this is not a love story. The film shows us that Summer had her own life, her own feelings, and her own journey that had nothing to do with saving him. The protagonist's failure to see her as a complete person is his tragedy, not hers. The decline of the Manic Pixie dream girl is a positive sign. It indicates a growing demand for better, more authentic storytelling. Audiences are no longer content with one-dimensional female characters who exist only to prop up male heroes. We want to see women on screen who are messy, ambitious, conflicted, and, most importantly, the main characters in their own lives. We want stories about partnerships between equals, not saviors, and their projects. So, the next time you see a quirky girl with a ukulele show up to rescue a sad boy from his existential dread, ask yourself, does she have a life outside of him? Does she have dreams, goals, or problems of her own? If the answer is no, then you've likely spotted a manic pixie dream girl in the wild. And it's a reminder that while we've made progress, the ghost of lazy writing can still haunt our screens, waiting for a brooding protagonist to save. What do you think about this trope? Are there any examples, good or bad, that stand out to you? Let me know in the comments. And for more deep dives into film and television tropes, make sure to subscribe to Movies Recap Repo.